Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and I feel it's only fair to issue a warning at the start of today's video because it is entirely possible that watching today's video may cause serious and irrevocable damage to your brain cells. It is entirely possible that you may end up being significantly more stupid by the end of this video than you were at the start purely by virtue of having watched it, so you have been warned. This is, and I need to take a bit of a breath to pronounce his full name, Fix CV's Nautical Metaphor. I suspect his name was originally just Nautical Metaphor, but at some point after the CV rework was introduced, he decided he was going to put his money where his mouth was and paid to have his name changed and added the Fix CV's bit to the beginning. Well, you know, it is your money. Anyway, Tier 8 battle, he's in the Chapayev, Soviet Tier 8 light cruiser, armed with 12 152mm guns, pretty much exactly the same guns that its predecessor, the Shaw's at Tier 7, is equipped with, except here on the Chapayev they have a slightly longer range. But what you get with the first hull upgrade for the Chapayev is the ability to use radar, and this Russian radar has a short duration compared to American radar, but it does have a very long range, 11.7 kilometers. And because the Chapayev is Tier 8, you can fit the concealment module, which means it's possible to actually stealth radar in this ship, with the radar range quite significantly in excess of the ship's surface detection range. Which means that you can get an early radar off in the Chapayev, which can be surprisingly effective, particularly if the enemy team has a couple of destroyers who haven't really been paying that much attention to your team list and or aren't aware that the Chapayev has an 11.7 kilometer radar. There it goes. Oh look, targets, targets, targets everywhere. And it looks like the enemy Kagero, attempting to contest Charlie with the friendly Shinanomi, is about to have a very, very bad day. He really should be just turning around and running away right now. It's a Japanese destroyer. It relies on stealth for its survival. He's already blown his cover. Although, maybe Fix did drop his radar a little bit too soon. Now that the enemy Kagero has managed to get inside the cap circle and has deployed his smokescreen, now would be the best time to actually fire up that radar. And yet, they still don't appear to have any problems spotting the Kagero, because he's going too fast to stay inside the smokescreen. Although he has managed to at least now slow down enough to go undetected. The thing is, I don't know whether or not he did that deliberately. It may be that he's slowed to a stop because he just doesn't have the last stand skill, and his engine was knocked out, so the ship stops. Or he does have the last stand skill, but he wants to stay inside the smoke, so he's not using the damage control to fix the engine. But then he kind of slides out of the smoke, still slowing down, and gets spotted again, and that's what tells me that he does not have the last stand skill. The 2-point captain skill, he doesn't have it. Because it not only prevents you from going any faster, because your engine's been knocked out, it prevents you from going any slower. When you want to come to a stop, you can't if your engine's knocked out, and you don't have last stand. Well, you can, but not as quickly as you'd like. So that was a Kagero with probably a 0-point, no skill captain. And that was the first blood award. Next up, enter our second victim. This Atlanta is pretty special. I warned you, okay? I warned you right at the start of this video. Watching today's World of Warships video was going to leave you coming away substantially more stupid than you were when you started watching it. Check out this Atlanta. He's been spotted. And he doesn't adjust his course or speed, he keeps sailing in a perfectly straight line. He just caught sight of Fix as he passed between the low point between those two islands over there. And Fix decides, you know what, my radar's about to come off cooldown. Now, if you were in an extremely light cruiser, like the Atlanta, and you'd just been radared, but at the point where you were radared, you were nice and safe behind an island, you might slow to a stop behind that island until the radar had at least expired. But not this guy. Oh no. Full speed ahead, same course, same speed. He is now coming out spotted well in advance and broadsiding a Chapayev, a light cruiser armed with 12 152mm guns. Now, Fix actually gets pretty unlucky here. RNG does kind of screw him over, because those 3 citadels are the only ones he's going to get. And unfortunately, while there's no way the Atlanta is ever going to win this fight, it's still an Atlanta, and it still has lots and lots and lots of 5-inch guns. And it is able to do a significant amount of damage to him before he can finally put it down. So that was kind of unlucky. Although the Atlanta kill, which does cost him more than half of his health, because he's still on fire, and his damage control is on cooldown, has put the team 200 points ahead. More than 200 points ahead. And they've got more points coming in because they do now control 2 of the caps. Fix has got some steaming to do to catch up with the rest of his team after his little adventure on this flank with the Kagero and the Atlanta. But the team are now in a very strong tactical position. Not only are they ahead a kill and a cap, as well as the points advantage that also confers, but tactically they're in the position to actually outflank the enemy team and catch them in a crossfire. And so that is exactly why Fix is steaming south, to get himself into a position where he can rain down death and destruction on enemy ships that are otherwise occupied with other threats to their front. Crossfires wins games in World of Warships. Now, looking at the map, there are a pair of friendly Atlantas up ahead, who you might guess are also rushing to get themselves into exactly the same position. You might think that, and you'd be wrong. Now, on several levels, there are some parallels between World of Warships and World of Tanks. The enemy Atlanta that Fix just obliterated, for example, is the perfect example of the World of Tanks suicide scout who just rushes forward, YOLOs right into the enemy, fires his guns, does some damage, dies, and then queues up for the next battle. But you'd be mistaken for thinking that aircraft carriers in World of Warships were the functional equivalent of artillery in World of Tanks. They might appear to be so on a superficial level, but whereas in World of Tanks, if you spot an artillery, you definitely want to kill them if you have the chance, because they're very dangerous and they're very easy to kill. Aircraft carriers in World of Warships are very dangerous, but they are far from easy to kill. And those 2 Atlantas are not doing what Fix is doing, rushing to take advantage of the enemy's positioning and get themselves into a crossfire position. No, they're determined to kill that carrier. They are chasing that carrier to the ends of the earth in an effort to stomp his little aircraft carrier brains out. The only problem? Well, there are actually quite a few problems. And at least one of the Atlantas has found out the hard way that the aircraft carrier stomps back. But that's just one of the problems that these guys are encountering. You see, you'd think that a pair of Atlantas have the perfect toolbox at their disposal to take care of an aircraft carrier. They have unlimited uses of the defensive fire cooldown, for example. And there's 2 of them, so they can stagger the use of that cooldown. But the Saipan also has at least one very significant advantage over the 2 of them. It's a faster ship. It has a top speed of 33 knots. The Atlanta has a top speed of 32.5. And they're chasing him. And they never really seem to get any closer than 9 kilometers, which is very close to the maximum effective range of the Atlanta's 5-inch guns. And the Atlanta's lightweight 5-inch shells take a very long time to reach a target at that range. So long, in fact, that the Atlanta can have 4 salvos in the air before the first one has reached the target, and by that time the target, in the case of the Saipan, has probably moved on half a kilometre, and they're not getting any closer to him. Meanwhile, Fix has himself another broadsiding light cruiser to shoot at, and is undetected because he's firing from behind the concealment of an island. He's starting to angle away, so the armour piercing is likely to become less and less effective, and in fact now his shells have been occluded by the island up ahead. Our 2 friends in the Atlantas, however, are still completely oblivious to anything else other than that enemy Saipan. The Atlanta to the rear has been spanked so hard by that Saipan, he's now fallen back and is outside of shooting range. The Atlanta in the lead, well, he was shooting, but his shells were landing around about half a kilometre short. So they've got some catching up to do. And the Saipan is half a knot faster than them. Gee. I don't know, if only there were a couple of Atlantas over here, for example, where they might actually be able to do some good. But they're not, so it's pretty much all down to Fix. In all fairness, though, even if those two Atlantas had been in a position to provide any kind of support fire, it's extremely unlikely that Fix would have survived this encounter. The enemy Kagero is shooting at, and the friendly Shinanomi has died. The Kagero's inside the smoke, there goes the radar. Then again, you know, if there had been an Atlanta or two helping him out with this Kagero, because RNG does kind of screw him over here again, it is possible that Fix might have survived this. If there'd been anybody else shooting at this Kagero, Fix wouldn't have had to spend as much time as he did killing him, and might, in fact probably would, have been able to kill the Baltimore before the Baltimore sets the fatal fire. See, his damage control's on cooldown as he fires off his torpedoes. The Baltimore was firing high explosive at him. He was angled. It was a good choice from the Baltimore. But it's that second fire, right as the torpedoes strike home, and at the point where Fix's team is almost 400 points ahead of the enemy, in possession of two of the caps, and ahead a kill, but it's the fire set by the dying Baltimore that takes Fix out of the equation. Still, he did manage to get 4 kills, and the team are still ahead a good 300 points, and in possession of 2 of the caps. So what's going on with those 2 Atlantas? Well, like a pair of terriers with their teeth sunk into a bone, they just will not let go. And it's only when the Saipan has been forced to change course because he ran out of map that they're finally close enough to be able to sink him. These 2 have been chasing that Saipan since he was first spotted 10 minutes ago. In that entire length of time, they've sunk 1 ship. They have at least, well, they haven't prevented him from killing anything, but they've certainly kept his aircraft occupied for at least the last 10 minutes. Speaking of aircraft carriers, here's the friendly Shikaku. Now, you'd think that the fact that you're actually getting shot at by surface guns would be a good indicator that you might need to move your aircraft carrier. You'd think that, and, well, you'd be wrong. You'd also think that the fact that an enemy destroyer was spotted within torpedo launch range would be another good indicator that you might want to actually move your aircraft carrier. You might think that, and guess what? You'd also be wrong. Now, real men just sit there, daring the torpedoes to do their worst while ignoring all warnings from their team in chat, with somewhat predictable results. The Shikaku could have made that incredibly difficult for the Z-39. It's a fast carrier. It's got a top speed of 34 knots. It's even faster than the Saipan. Admittedly, the Z-39 is 2 knots faster, but ask anybody what it's like trying to hit a target with torpedoes when it's sailing away from you. The torpedoes only have an 8.5 kilometer range anyway, and if the Z-39 is having to chase after you to catch you, it can't hide inside a smokescreen, and you can nail it with the rocket attack planes, but no, real carriers just sit there waiting to eat the torpedoes, ignoring all warnings in chat, because real men don't bother dodging torpedoes. Still, despite the suicidal carrier, they are still 300 points ahead, although that margin is narrowing significantly as the enemy team are now in control of 2 of the caps. It's also likely that the Z-39 is now motoring south in order to flip Charlie as well. So what would be the smartest thing, particularly since the enemy team do still have a mostly full health North Carolina, what would be the smartest thing for these 2 Atlantas to do? Well, let's think about it. The Z-39 is probably not far short of 30 kilometers away, and probably isn't even heading in their direction anyway. He's probably heading straight south in order to cap Charlie. It's the best thing for the Z-39 to do. Which means they've got the spotting advantage over the North Carolina. The North Carolina is never going to be able to sneak up on them, and he knows this too because he's got his surveillance aircraft up in an attempt to get eyes on these 2 Atlantas, and he knows where they were and he's heading in this direction. And you don't really want to get into a fight with the North Carolina because he's got 16-inch armor piercing shells. The Atlanta has the armor of a destroyer but the citadel of a cruiser, but they don't have to fight the North Carolina for other reasons. They have the points. What they should be doing is slipping behind this island here and using it to head north and flip Alpha, and then just stay away from the North Carolina. Of course, that's not what they're doing. No, why would it? That might result in their team winning the game. That might result in their team not throwing away the 400-point lead that they had just a couple of minutes ago. No, instead, he's going to try to bow tank 16-inch armor-piercing shells that can easily overmatch the Atlanta's destroyer armor bow plating and citadeling from the front with the laser-like accuracy of the North Carolina's 16-inch armor-piercing shells. And that, boys and girls, is how you turn a 400 point, in fact at one point nearly 500 point, 2 cap, 1 kill, guaranteed winning lead into the kind of depressing suicidal throw that you just witnessed. And in case you're wondering, yes, this match did take place on a holiday weekend. And don't forget, the summer school holidays are coming up if they haven't already started wherever you are, so enjoy your games. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.